Getting up and running with Revit involves a lot more than modeling. But before we leave the topic of modeling behind, I'd like to look at several other modeling tools and techniques that you might want to be aware of. Now, our goal here isn't to go into great detail on any one of these tools. We've got Revit Essential training here at lynda.com to help you along with that. What we're going to do, rather, is just look at sort of the highlights of some of the other parts and pieces that will likely be a part of many of the building models that you're going to work with in Revit. So I'm in a file here called Modeling Tools, and we're looking at a slightly more refined version of our restaurant building. And as you can see, it's got some glazing on the exterior walls here. It's got a roof structure already. So let's take a look at some of these features. Now, most buildings have roofs, so why don't we start there? Okay, there's a roof object right here, and then another one over here. And the most obvious thing about the roof that you can see is it's very easy to make a sloping roof. Now, a roof in Revit is what we call a sketch-based object. Now, if I select the roof, like most things in Revit, if you select them, they become semi-transparent while they're selected. So we can actually see right through the roof now into the building there. But with the roof selected, if you look over here, we get some information, for example, about its slope. So this roof slope is currently 4 and 12. So it rises 4 inches for every 12 inches of run. Now, I could actually change that right here and make it steeper, and you'll see that the walls adjust accordingly. Or I could make it shallower, and the walls continue to adjust accordingly. Of course, right there, that's probably a little too shallow. Why don't we go back to 4 and 12? Let me show you really quickly how that roof was created. Let's say that we wanted to have a little canopy over the front door over here. So to do that, I'm going to go into Level 1 Floor Plan, and I'll zoom in on the front door area, and we will build a really simple little roof right there. So I'm going to click on the roof button. Now, it's roof by footprint that we're after. So if you click the drop-down portion, just make sure you're choosing that roof by footprint. Now, that grays out the drawing, and it puts me in a sketching mode. And if you look over here on the ribbon, we have a variety of tools that we can choose from. I'm just going to choose this simple rectangle option right there. And I'm going to click and draw a simple rectangle. I'll use the temporary dimensions as a guide. And I'm not too concerned with the depth here. 9'6" is fine, but I wanted it about 10 feet wide. And to make it sloped, if I finished right now, I would have a perfectly flat roof. To make it sloped, what you do is you click your Modify tool to cancel out of the command. And then I want to select both this line and this line and make those sloping edges. Now, the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to click here and drag so that it highlights both of those edges. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're dragging to the left. If you drag to the right, it doesn't highlight those two edges, but if you drag to the left, it does. I've got those two selected, and what you do is up here on the options bar, you check this little checkbox right here to make those two edges define slope. Then over here on the properties palette, you can see that the slope is about 7 and 12. So that's awfully steep for this little roof canopy here. So I'm going to drop that down to maybe 4 and 12 to match the roof that we have on the main building. So you just type 4 and press enter, and it will interpret it as 4 and 12. The way that you know that these are sloping edges is they have these little triangles on them. And when I click finish here, this big green checkbox, that will complete the roof. And if we return to 3D, you'll see that little roof right there. The only trouble is that I accidentally built it on the floor. Not that big of a deal. You see the base level says level 1. I'll just come over here and move that up to level 2, and that puts it up where it belongs. So that's a really simple example of creating a roof. Another item that you see here is these curtain wall items here. Now, if I move my mouse around, you see that there's a lot going on. You can see it's highlighting edges and internal components and so forth. So what I'm looking for here, if I move my mouse around, is the dashed outer edge right there. Now, if you're having trouble getting it to highlight that dashed outer edge, you can press the tab key. And each time you tab, it will cycle through different options. And you can see there were several there. So there's the dashed edge, but each time I tab, you can see lots of other choices. That's called a curtain wall. Now, a curtain wall is just a more complex wall that's divided into parts and pieces. It is actually a wall. So let me take you here to Level 1 Floor Plan. I'm going to open up Level 1 Floor Plan here on the project browser. And right here in this vestibule area, we have two solid walls right here that we drew in a previous movie. I'm going to select those two using that same crossing window method that we did outside. So again, you click an empty space and drag to the left. Now don't go too far because you'll get the column grid. I want to just touch those two walls right there. Now over here it should say walls and in parentheses 2. And that's how you know that you've got just 2 walls selected. I'm going to click this drop down. Now currently it's a generic 5-inch wall. But if you scroll down toward the bottom of the list, notice that there's a curtain wall family, and there's 3 different kinds of curtain walls, and I'm going to choose storefront. And that is how those walls on the outside, or those curtain walls on the outside, were created. They are just curtain walls called storefront. And you can draw them just like you draw any other wall. So let me show you over here. Let's say that we wanted another one of these curtain walls embedded in this wall. Another really nice feature about the curtain wall is if you draw it right on top of another wall, it'll actually cut itself right in there like a window would. So I'm going to click the wall command, open up the drop-down. I'll choose that same curtain wall storefront, and then I'll just pick 2 points directly on top of this existing wall, and you'll see it will cut right in there. Now you may notice that it's oriented the opposite way of the one next to it. This little grip right here will take care of that, and all I have to do is flip it. If I go back outside to the 3D view, you can see that I now have this storefront right in here. I'm going to cancel out of there. You notice this one starts a little bit off the floor. To do that, you just simply click it, and right here, you type in a value for the base offset from level, and it will raise that up. So that's how those curtain wall objects were created. And there's lots of other elements in here, and you can feel free to look around and explore, but let me just point out one more to you that you might want to look at. If I go back to level 1 floor plan, we have a balcony actually going up on level 2. And here's a stairwell that goes up to that balcony. So Revit has stair tools right here that you can create a stair with, complete with railings. If I go up to level 2 floor plan, there's a floor object out here to make that balcony. Now, the floor object here is almost identical to the roof object that we just looked at. The only difference is none of the edges of this floor are sloped. So that keeps the floor slab perfectly flat, where the roof that we built, we made some of those edges sloped. But if I chose this edit boundary command, you'll see it's the same basic idea that we saw with the roof object. So there's a lot of other model objects. We've got floors, we've got roofs, we've got stairs, we've got curtain walls. There's a variety of tools that we can use to begin to flesh out our models and make them more complete. So I encourage you to spend a little time playing around with them and exploring in this model. And if you want to learn more about the specifics of any of these tools, you can check out Revit Essential Training here at lynda.com.